When you showed me that video, that
Oh, yeah.
was hilarious. I
I
was
had
like,
to go back and because I hadn't even watched the whole thing. I just seen clips of it. So
oh, that thing
there's
had me
Eric. There's a
crying.
video on YouTube. This guy
I spit out my coffee on my computer.
he does deep fakes of like Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon and now Anakin, and like Qui-Gon's a Force ghost, and they're all like sitting on like a couch in the living room and they're watching Star Wars, and like Qui-Gon's like, hey, wait, what, why does she get to live?
Right, right.
It's all just sort of like they're doing all these like silly takes on it and stuff like that. It's pretty damn funny.
Because he asked Obi-Wan, it's like, you mean you could have saved me? Because like did this diagram about how, this is just the bladder and you'll still live. He's like, wait a minute.
Like, it's a shitty diagram.
Right, right. Like I don't have to be a ghost. I could have lived. Like you could have saved me. And he's like, well, the quality of life wouldn't have been that good. And he's like, huh? He said, what do you mean? I would have been alive. And he's like, yeah, but you wouldn't be able to eat cheese. And he's like, yeah. Let me die.
Like, good point.
Good point. Good point. Yeah, I couldn't live without cheese. Let me die.
I need the gallbladder for the cheese.
Right, right. And Anakin was just like, yeah, man, yeah, you gotta let him go. You gotta let him go. Cause like, what's life if you can't process cheese? It was, man, like I said, I spit my coffee out. It was so left field. It was so dry, and it was hitting all the points you would think all the stuff he was saying. It's brilliant. You gotta watch it, E. I know Ryan's probably tired of me. I just kept hearing quotes and typing. I'm like, yeah, it was so many moments of just silliness. It was just like, this is just, yeah. Disney need to hire them or add that or tack that onto their show as extra content, because they if you're gonna get talked about and clowned, you want somebody who does it like that, because they had the perfect balance of, they love it, they love Star Wars, but
well, I feel like if they wanted to do something like what Star Trek's done with Lower Decks, which is clearly like a comedy show,
right,
that it doesn't parody Star Trek. It plays with Star Trek. It loves Star Trek. It respects Star Trek, but it is goofball shenanigans, right? And I could see something like that for Star Wars, but
but it had to be. It's funny when the ghost is looking like, oh yeah, she's dead, like because like I went through that too. Oh, she's dead. And then for her to pop back up, like wait, and then to find out he didn't have to die. I said the same thing to Ryan, and then Ryan's like, well, she probably had close medical help, and I'm thinking like, okay, then what about the captain who got stabbed and he got a damn sick bay? He didn't have time
because everyone was dead. Everyone was dead. No one's dragging him to sick bay. He fucking slaughtered everyone.
I'm like, man, don't help this damn show.
He was laying on the ground like, you taking me to... Oh, wait. How about you? You taking me? Oh, shit, he dead too.
Man, I'm like, just let me have it, Ryan. Just let me have it, dude. I'm trying to be petty, and you won't let me have it. Oh, boy. All right.
It's going to be a fun night.
So, Ryan, man, what's going on with you? How was your day today?
It started way too early.
Okay.
Like 4 a.m. My brain just like, I woke up and I failed to go back to sleep for an hour and a half. And I just gave up.
I woke up at 3. What were you doing that? So what happened when you got up? What'd you do?
Nothing. I just woke up. I was like, and just could not. So frustrating. Could not get back to sleep for an hour and a half. And I just like, fuck it. Got up and just went to the office and just went on Facebook and watched reels like 3 hours.
Oh, wow.
Straight. I could not go back to sleep. And I was just like, I'm awake and I'm not happy about it. And then was somehow a functional adult. Somehow. We did go and do ultrasounds for number 2. So everything's looking good there. Yeah. Besides that, tried to be a functional adult at work.
Same here. Like I said, I woke up at 3 o'clock too. I tried to do the right thing and not put in like a YouTube video or something. I tried to do the right thing, but I just,
I held out for an hour and a half.
Better than me. I tried. I did good the night before, but not so much this morning. But yeah, I kind of felt it. It was kind of a crazy day, but I don't know. I guess it kind of went along with how the day was going. But
I know why we woke up so early, because we both knew Eric was going to join us tonight, and consciously we were excited.
/scared.
Same.
Yeah,
As long
yeah.
as long as we don't bring up any Dick Grayson, Nightwing, X-Men stuff, I think we'll be all right.
He knows his weakness.
What's going on with you, E? How you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm good. My little one always wakes up at 5:30 on the dot too, and I got to get up and let her out. Then I gotta feed her, and then I gotta give her insulin shot because she is diabetic. So
Oh my
yeah,
goodness. Her bladder is on a clock.
Wow.
yeah, it's crazy.
So how you been, man? What's been up with you?
Working too much as
Okay.
usual.
Okay.
Had today off. Spent the first part with the missus, and then she had to go into work tonight.
Okay. So you get a chance to hang out with us a little bit.
Yeah, I sat down to write, like actually write something,
Mm-hmm.
and then I started thinking about hanging out with you guys tonight, and I grabbed my script guide,
Mm-hmm.
and then I started like adding a bunch of shit to it. So every now and then I write notes on stuff that I want to add to it. So I typed it all out and ended up adding a bunch of other stuff. So yeah, we might have to do a tangent on that at one point for us.
That'll be dope.
Added some stuff to that. So
Excellent.
What made you even want to brave it with Ryan and I? Well,
because I was anticipating the Ahsoka show. I was like, after Andor, I was like thinking, oh, I hope it's gonna be something really good like that.
yeah.
And then I saw the trailer and I thought to myself, well, that looks good, but it doesn't look like the level of in-depth storytelling that Andor had.
Mm.
And then, I was trying to wait for it to end, and I decided, like, I got a couple people I work with, and they're like being really good and holding their tongue. And I was like, I'm gonna just go ahead and watch the first two episodes, and then I logged on, and the third one was on. So I watched 3 episodes, and then I was like, and then in the process of watching it, I was just like, I like it, but there's things that bug me. And I was like, what are the things that bug me? After I watched the first 2 episodes, I sat and thought about it. Then I watched the third one, and then I was able to kind of formulate some stuff. And then I thought, you know what? I want to hop on.
Okay. All right. So let's get ready to do this. Ryan, you good?
Locked and loaded.
EP?
Oh yeah. Oh my God, I'm so excited.
All right, everybody say their prayers. I'm just joking, but say your prayers. All right. 5, 4, 3, 2. All right, it's Jay. I'm back again for another one. And tonight I have with me.
Jedi Knight Ryan from an unconventional line of Jedi.
Damn. Okay. And we have.
The transformational Optimus Prime.
That's right. How y'all doing, fellas?
Chilling.
Good.
Right on. So we have a new voice, a new addition tonight. Special
A
guest.
third player for the third episode of Ahsoka.
Nicely put. Nicely put.
Yes.
Yes, E Prime.
Yes,
Optimus
sir.
Prime, E Eric, all those things. Childhood friend from way back, brother and art, blah, 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 blah.
Blah 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 blah. Wah 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 wah.
How you fellas been? Y'all been all right?
Could always use more sleep. That I realized listening back, I'm like,
It's a running
"Oh my
theme."
God, clearly I've got some chronic exhaustion. I'm gonna have to deal with at some point. Just assume I'm tired and not getting enough sleep.
Man, you gotta let go of that hustle culture, bruh.
Yeah, tell that to the toddler.
Yeah, you can't get off certain rides. You can't get off. It's just what it is. It's just what it is. All right, so we're gonna dig in tonight in episode 3, Time to Fly. And this is directed by Steph Green. And Ryan, no comment because they don't know. I know what you're thinking, and don't do it.
Not a different green. Steph Green. there's a specific scene I want to give her compliments because like there's a scene in here I really like what was done with the camera work. So like
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. And this kind of goes along with what's been going on with this show, at least from the first 2 episodes. And this show really takes its time and breathes. And so there's a lot of quiet time. There's a lot of moments, even though stuff is going on. To me, I almost get the vibe of like a stage play. Not only like maybe a one-man play, but a stage play where you got like 3 characters, no more than 3 characters at one time. And everybody kind of, you know, it's more of the nuances and the looks and stuff. And it almost plays like that, even though you got the best set and everything looks great. And I'm just saying that's kind of the vibe. And depending on how you like your shows, that might be a thing that might be a thing for you.
I would say like the first half of the episode, yes, and then we get into the action sequence at the back half, and then it's we're going. Right.
You're kind of touching on why I wanted to hop on this week.
Okay. We start off with so Sabina's training, right? And she's training. She's trying to, you know, prepare for the situation. She's trying to get her skills back up because there's a battle coming and she wants to be ready. You know, she cut her hair, she put her big girl clothes on, and she's trying to step up. Ahsoka walks in. She kind of gives a look, and it kind of reminds me of the training scene with the blind helmet with Obi-Wan and Luke in the New Hope. Kind of remind me of that. It's a little bit reminding me of Morpheus dealing with Neo, of, you know, saying cryptic kind of information that kind of help, but if you don't understand what they're talking about, it doesn't.
How did I beat you?
You're too fast.
Do you believe that my being stronger or faster has anything to do with my muscles in this place? You think that's air you're breathing now?
Like Neo's kind of looking like, what do you mean? What are you trying to say? So it's a lot of moments like that, like the don't try to hit me and hit me, you know, that kind of stuff.
This is always the trick with TV shows, and I would say TV shows and movies more than books, where you're trying to explain some sort of magic system. And it's how is the person gonna bridge the gap from reality as we know it to access this magical thing. And I like that it's not like we're just gonna throw you into the fire and you're gonna fucking figure it out or die, right? I'm thinking Doctor Strange in his first movie where they're just like, I can't do the teleport ring, and they're like, I can't access the magic. Like, all right, well, we'll just throw you on this mountain. If you don't figure it out, you die. Bye. Right. And then it's just like he's got it, right? So I appreciate they're not doing that, right? And it's also like she's not good at it and is probably not going to be good at it for a while. And it's like, okay, all right, I'm on board.
Okay.
I kind of wish that they touch on it a little bit, but I wish that they would play up more the fact that she's not a Jedi.
Which one, Ahsoka or Sabine?
Sabine. Ahsoka's not a Jedi either. She walked away from the Order, and I don't think she considers herself a Jedi, so I feel like it's inaccurate. But she is a Force user. But I wish they would play up more the fact that Sabine is not a Jedi, and that Ahsoka doesn't expect her to be a Jedi. I think they should play. I don't know where they're going. I'm hoping that the arc is Ahsoka is not trying to get her to be a Jedi. She's getting her to tap into the little bit of Force that she can tap in, but to say, these are the skills that you have based on the fact that you're a Mandalorian and based on the fact that you have a little bit of, Force sensitivity, but play with what you have, play in the arena that you have, be good at what you are, and find your road to what I'm trying to get you to do.
Yeah, because that was kind of the conversation that Ahsoka had with the droid when she was saying, like, I want her to be her, Yeah. And then the whole thing was brought up about being kind of an unorthodox, Jedi.
From a line of unorthodox Jedi.
Exactly. So
because the lineage, here's the crazy thing: it's Count Dooku who trained Qui-Gon, who trained Obi-Wan, who trained Anakin, who trained Ahsoka.
Yeah,
and they're all. I mean, of the three, like, I guess you could probably say Obi-Wan is probably the most standard-ish, but even he was like, did his own thing, and the older he got, he kind of like got drug along by Qui-Gon on one side and Anakin on the other side, and they're kind of like, you're coming along, And he's like, no, I want to stay in the Jedi way. And they're like, nah, screw that. We're gonna just do what we want to do. And he just got kind of drug along.
So what was it when I was talking about how it kind of played out like a play? What were your thoughts about that?
Let me preface it by saying I really do like the show, but some of the stuff that when I'm watching it, and I know it's Dave Filoni's kind of like big directorial debut without like Favreau under his shoulder, and I kind of feel like the show was filmed like animation. Like it seemed like, when you're watching a show on TV, there's character coverage. Like people will talk to each other and then the camera will jump back and forth between the people that are talking, and it'll be over the shoulder shots. And the camera's not necessarily on the person that's talking all the time, or someone might start talking and then they'll come into frame.
Right.
And then the camera will jump to the next person while that person's still talking. And this one had kind of like a staccato, like short and disjointed coverage. Like when someone was talking, the camera was on them. And then when they stopped talking, the camera went to the next person and it started talking. And it's just like when you're in animation and you need your audience to understand who's talking, you put the camera on the character, because animation can't, it's not as expressive as humans. So they have to do little cheaty things, like make sure that the camera's on the person that's talking, making sure that the camera's not on someone else, and then someone else is talking because you might be going like, wait, who's talking? Because you don't see the little minute from the side, the little minute muscles moving that tells you who might be talking. Or it came across to me like when they were having conversations, it was like, you talk. Okay, are you done now? Okay, now I talk. Oh, okay, you're done? Okay, now you talk.
I
Okay,
don't.
I can. Oh, wait, are you still talking? Oh, okay, I can talk now. And that's what it felt like to me. It felt like people were stopping, and then there was a split 1.5 seconds too long before the next person started talking. And I was like, what is this?
A stage play.
It's not flowing.
See,
Yeah.
I wonder too, how much of this is, I mean, whoever is the creative lead, which is Dave Filoni, like it comes down to him, but the difference between what the director shot and then what the editor did. I saw this video the other day where they were breaking down, there's the TV show The Bear, right? Where it's about
I gotta
people,
start watching that.
right? People that are working in kitchens as sous
Yeah.
chefs and things like that, and it's winning tons of awards. I haven't seen it, but they were breaking down and having conversations with the editors because they're getting tons of praise, and they had apparently some dinner scene, this very, very tense dinner scene. And they were talking about him, instead of doing what Eric's talking about, which is Eric's talking, the camera's on Eric. Now Jay's talking, the camera's on Jay, and I'm talking, the camera's on me. You don't need to watch, in this case, in this scene, the dad or the mom or the angry uncle that are causing tension at the table. You cut to everyone else and their uncomfortable reactions to what's going on, and it builds tension, right? It's a different way of doing it. And I do agree that either through the editing or through the directing, as far as like how they're setting up and intending the shots, it is very straightforward. And it's this person is talking and then this person is talking. I would say, and this is where I do want to compliment the director, this scene where Sabine is forced to put on the helmet and I can't see anything, and it's like, well, you gotta tune into the Force. Where am I? Focus on my voice. And I don't think this is crazy advanced like cinematography or anything, but the camera routinely pans off of Ahsoka.
Yeah.
Because now we're in Sabine's perspective as we lose track of where Ahsoka is. We think she's off to the left. We think she's off to the right because that's where she disappeared to. But then her voice will come in from the left and she's over there, right? And they did that like 3 or 4 times in the scene. And it worked really well to put us in Sabine's perspective of, oh, well, I just saw you go off camera. But actually she's over here, right?
And nice flow.
Right, it had nice flow to it. It didn't seem disjointed, right?
But that could have been real quick. It could have been real quickly, like, oh, she just popped up like a horror movie, like, but it didn't feel like that.
I think that's a characteristic of. I mean, usually if you have a fight scene, you have a second unit director, because they're responsible for that. And if you have a second unit director, most likely that person is used to filming live action footage and they know how to film that. So they're thinking, what do I need to film to make the audience feel a certain way? Unfortunately, I feel like Dave Filoni is thinking like an animator, and he's thinking like, how do I film an animation thing? And like an animation, like human face is like, it's exceptionally complex. It's like subtle, and it can express all these incredible, diverse, complex emotions with, just the slightest twitch of an eyebrow or
micro expressions,
curling your lips. Yeah, but you can't get that on an animation where a character is just 2 or 3, even in 3D animation. And so animators usually have to cheat that by making sure that the character is conveying emotion with big physical emotion to the silhouette, so that when you can see across the room, you can see what the character's feeling by how they're moving their arm and stuff like that. Or, and they do it a lot in anime, you got the chibi face where the face goes like
big expressions.
It's too much. And so when Jay was like, it felt like they were in a thing. When you're in the back row of a play
performance,
yeah, like the characters have to emote and make sure that the people that are up in the cheap seats or up in the booths, they have to be able to see what the character is trying to express. And so characters are going to be more physically active. And I just kind of felt like that's the way it felt to me, like everything was disjointed with the camera work and how people were talking. And it, like, if you go back and watch it, like there was a scene when Ahsoka and Sabine were talking on the ship, like the first couple of times they're on the ship talking, and it just felt to me like, I'm going to talk. And then it felt like a split second that you had to wait, a second and a half, and then the next person would talk. And then TV shows don't really do that. Like, they kind of simulate the way life is, really. Like, people talk over each other and interrupt each other, and they don't do that to the extreme that we do it in real life, but they get it stimulate it close enough so that you feel like people are interrupting each other a little bit.
They're not reading lines.
Yeah, it's still clear. And it just felt like, I mean, if you go back and watch it, it felt to me like maybe they filmed their scenes and they weren't even in the same room at the same time. And the editor didn't fix it. That was, that kind of was just driving me crazy. I was like, I want to really like this show, but this is like throwing me out of it. That was a big thing for me in the first 2 episodes.
The dialogue doesn't feel alive.
No.
What kind of happens after the whole thing with the training and stuff? Hera, she meets with the chancellors to try to get support from the New Republic, and Mon Mothma's there from Andor. And I thought it was kind of interesting, like when it was brought up that Thrawn could be possibly alive and the reactions of everybody. It almost felt like it was almost implied that some of the folks were probably in on it and probably knew, and some was like honestly kind of surprised. But what kind of threw me off a little bit was Hera's attitude about the whole thing. Like, she asked some good questions, but it's like, would you really speak to them like that? And I thought it was kind of interesting. Like, but that might be how her personality is. But I thought it was kind of, I don't know, maybe because of her age or something like that. But it was just like her response and how she was talking to him. It's almost like talking truth to power, but it's almost like if you were that kind of a person, they wouldn't let you in like that then. You would be kind of on the outside.
Hera doesn't code switch.
Yeah, so exactly.
If she was talking to Mon Mothma, she's got currency with Mon Mothma.
Yes,
she could have that conversation with Mon
right,
Mothma
exactly.
in that tenor.
Exactly.
But not with the other senators, part of the council.
And she should have let some stuff slide over her head because she knows that she doesn't have the cream to be talking to them like that.
Yeah. But she was kind of talking sideways to them, and even Mon Mothma, you could see like even she kind of looked like she was kind of like, yeah, she got him. She kind of like gave a smirk of like, yeah, but it's almost like, well, you're asking for help. Well, like if you're asking for something, you don't ask like that if you expect to get it. It's some kind of like nuances that you got to give, or some kind of humility, even if you know the person is a bad person. Or, you know, just like Mon Mothma had to do when she was dealing with that one guy, and she knew he was shady. But she had to deal. She had to deal with it, and so I don't know. But like I said, it could have just been her character. But the way she was kind of side eyeing everybody, and every time they say something, she gave a great answer that we would all want to say in our head, but we probably wouldn't say out loud because we need something from them.
And I think that also goes a little bit to like Eric saying there's not really much subtext, right? She's not playing anything close to the chest, but I think it's also, I mean, it's not Andor. It's not written with that level of layers and depth to it as well.
But is that character like that though? Is that character normally like that?
What I've seen in Rebels is she's pretty much She's a hardcore rebel. Like, she literally saw her parents, I think it was like set up by the Empire right after the end of the Clone Wars. Her parents were resistance fighters. They were fighting alongside the clone troopers, and then the Empire was like, by the way, your planet is ours now.
Yeah.
And
So that might just
she's
be,
been fighting for decades.
Yeah. So that might just be how she is, because I thought it was interesting when she was like, "Have you ever fought in a war?" I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah,
like, that's a good question, but you asking for something." But it was just kind of like, he had to just kind of like, "Well, no." Then she was like, "Well." It
not a
wasn't.
good move.
It wasn't wrong, but it wasn't right either.
I don't buy it, because if you go back and watch Rebels, that's been maybe what, 8 years since Rebels. In the room when she was in Rebels, when you consider the people that she was with, she was actually the voice of reason when it came to Kanan, when it came to Ezra, when it came to. Now we're talking about 8 years later, and she's a general now, and she knows Mon Mothma. I feel like at this point, even if she is a rebel and she's used to being in the world, I feel like she should have learned the game of politics and diplomacy, haven't gotten to that level of of being a general. And it just didn't seem like, I don't know. Like, to me, that character's, her arc, I don't know where her arc is going, but her arc in the story would be like what Mon Mothma's arc is in Andor. She's trying to get stuff done. She has to play politics. She doesn't like it because she's a warrior. She struggled with it, but she's trying to do it. She's trying to get done. She's facing red tape. Maybe you start to find out that some of the red tape she's facing is because there's some crooked stuff going on in the government, or maybe they're just, who knows? I feel like this is a story that they could add depth to her character arc by making it more subtle, and they just went for the easy, cheap stuff, the cliche things.
Yeah, I don't sense a strong arc yet for Hera.
Ryan, okay, I heard you when you said it. I hear you. And it's the truth of the situation. Yeah, it's not Andor. Because it feels like it's familiar. It's like a cousin, but it's not quite as cheesy. I'm not saying necessarily Mandalorian is cheesy, but the level, like I said before, this between Mandalorian and Andor is probably closer to Mandalorian than it is Andor. Even though it has the fixings of Andor, it still has a mentality and temperament of Mandalorian. And so the nuances and stuff that I was expecting or kind of thought it would kind of lean into, it still plays more like the Mandalorian, where it's just short, it's cute, it's to the point. Next.
The levels and depth are not as deep.
Yeah, so that's true, and that's fair.
I feel like it's a mistake in that they're trying to tell a grand story by bringing Thrawn back. And if you're going to tell a grand story, I just feel like it shouldn't be through this
lens.
Yeah, it just seems really small for what the grand story they're trying to tell, and the serious nature of bringing Thrawn back, and him supposed to being like this big, dangerous thing. If you want me to feel like this is world threatening, then I need a story that tells me that. And
this is why I'm kind of worried that we're not going to see much of Thrawn. Like, Thrawn is going to come back by the end of the season.
Yeah.
And then it's a cliffhanger because, things are going to happen now. Right?
Yeah, because this might not be
if this is the level of the complexity that they're showing right now,
right,
it's not worthy of Thrawn.
He will not be him in this show.
Right?
Yeah.
He will not be himself, possibly. But we'll see.
I'm curious. So to go back one scene, this is after they do the training, and then Ahsoka and Sabine are kind of talking and like, I'm struggling and da-da-da. And I'm going to say some nice things about Last Jedi here. So here we go.
Oh my God, where's my whiskey?
What I appreciate about this scene is Sabine's like, I have no aptitude. Like, the robot just said, like, I got no chance of being a Jedi. Right?
Yeah.
And what Ahsoka comes back to is like, the Force is in everyone. Right?
Yeah.
And so talent's a thing, but
hard
discipline and hard work, right? Ideas are cheap, execution's expensive, right?
Right.
And so it it shifts towards some of the themes in Last Jedi, which was moving away from sort of dynastic, chosen by destiny, magic bloodline force users, right? I love Luke. I love like the Anakin storyline and stuff, but to be able to go in the other direction, which is still anyone can be a Jedi, right? Anyone can make a difference, which I feel like was one of the themes that I liked in Last Jedi, was that Rey's parentage didn't fucking matter, right? And in the very last scene of the movie, that little epilogue with the stable kid, right, pulling the broom to himself, right? I teared up in that scene. So to see that theme coming back in, is that everyone that wants to be a Jedi doesn't have to be chosen from a magical lineage, doesn't have to have perfect aptitude, right? We even have in Rogue One, I can't remember his name, forgive me, but Donnie Yen's character, the blind guy, right? He's clearly got some connection to the Force, right? You don't have to be like, oh, your metachlorian count is this. You can just like, no, I'm gonna put in the effort, right? And maybe I will never be as good as like a full Jedi Knight or whatever else of this, but like I like that it is reaffirming that it is open to everyone, right? So I really liked that as sort of a return of that theme and sort of doubling down on it. And I thought the scene had the other weaknesses you were talking about, but just them coming back to that, I was like, fuck yes.
I was curious of your thoughts on that.
I agree with it. I think saying that was a theme of the Last Jedi is strong. I think theme is a strong word for that. I felt like they kept saying it in the movie, but they never actually showed it. So for me, theme is strong. They didn't do a good job of showing that. But yes, I agree that that's the theme that the really poor writers of that last movie were trying to get at. But I do agree that this show is doing a better job of it. And I hope that is a major part of Sabine's progress, is her just realizing as long as you work hard, work with the tools you got, and you'll get there.
Yeah, that would be great if they make that the theme that they're going to go with for her arc, right? Of, oh, I don't have any power, I don't have any ability, but she's just like, fuck it, I'm just going to grind through, right? And there's already, when she failed at the sort of wearing the blinder thing, she was angry, right? And Ahsoka warned her, like, yeah,
right,
anger is a shortcut. It could be we could see her dealing with that. I mean, these are sort of like fairy tales and fantasy stories and morality tales. And like, if the hero protagonist never fucks up, that's boring.
Yeah.
Right? And really, it does seem like, even though the show is called Ahsoka, I feel like Sabine is more the main character. Ahsoka is a main character, but Sabine seems like a focal character.
It's a protagonist. It's her journey.
She's the one who has the journey.
Yeah. I think Ahsoka's journey is sort of,
she's a mentor.
She's a mentor, but she, I think, is still resolving her feelings about leaving the Jedi, right? Because they harp on that in the first 2 episodes of she left the Order, right? She ran away from the Order, and she's like, and I ran away from Sabine, right? So I think there's an element of resolving that, and also concern of, well, my mentor became Darth Vader, right? Now, we haven't seen any doubt of like, can I train this person? Clearly she tried before, but part of her issue might be, how do I not fuck it up, right? If I got trained by Anakin and he became Darth Vader, right?
You know, that was another line that kind of annoyed me in the first or second episode. I can't remember. She's talking to Hera, and Hera was like talking to her, and she said, I walked away from Anakin. I guess Hera was saying, well, you know, I guess you're probably that way with your master. And she said, I walked away from Anakin. And I wish she would have just said, I walked away from the Jedi. I think it would have been more subtextually better for her to just say, I walked away from the Jedi, instead of specifically saying, right. It just seemed like a huge cheesy name drop that had no like level of of anything to just say, I walked away from Anakin. And then he keep going on. She should have just said, well, I walked away from the Jedi. And then there was like 2 or 3 more sentences that I wish she would just stopped and not said those. Because those are things that she should get to later. They don't know how to just let stuff breathe, and she's just vomiting out. Well, let me just say all this stuff right now. No, let that stuff be stuff that the audience discovers later on. Only let her say it when she's forced to say it, when she's forced to confront the way that she is interacting with Sabine and how she's dealing with, like Ryan said, she's dealing with her complex issues about leaving Anakin and what happened to him. And maybe some of that can be like, maybe if I stayed, that wouldn't have happened to him. Maybe some of that guilt, I don't know. They're just like, let me vomit out everything right now and not make the audience wait for that, not let the audience discover that. And I'm just like, does she have to say all that now? Like, it's just...
Well, the way it's written and shot, everything is so stretched out that all you have is, like I said, people sitting and talking. So you have where they're sitting and talking about the Force, how everybody has a Force, and she possibly, you know, she's showing her how to use it, and you can have it inside of you, and she's going to give 110%, and, you know, she walks off, she goes talk to the droid says, you know, yeah, she wouldn't have made it, you know, and she's like, you told her that? It's like, yeah, it's the truth. So I love the fact that the droid is a truth teller, regardless of how it might come off. And Ahsoka has more of a conversation about Sabine with the droid than she does with Sabine. And then after they have this long conversation about the person who's not in the room, when there's only 2 people in one room, she leaves out and they go back to the other room and it's 2 people in the room again, you know.
This is why they needed to have Hu Yang structurally, is so that person 1 who just talked to person 2 can leave person 2 and now go talk to person 3 about person 2,
so
because they need someone to express their internal feelings to.
Yes, because he's basically their proxy. And it was just funny, like they actually cut back to a shot where she's sitting up there trying to still fool with that cup and being like, oh, I'll get you next time. And I'm like, did they really go back to that scene of her still sitting by that cup trying to get that cup? So it's interesting, like, I don't know, it's like it's a lot of time, a lot of space, a lot of moments where there's a few people, so they have to interact and have to talk, but it's not as much information coming as you would think, considering how much time is being spent and shown.
I feel like Sabine should have been more dragged, kicking and screaming against her will, to having to wield that lightsaber again, to be honest. I kind of feel like
this is my thing last time about she didn't reject the call.
Yeah,
right?
Not at all. Like that. Like if it were me making that thing, when she got that thing and she went back and she's trying to figure that thing out, I would have written it so that when Shin showed up and she had to fight Shin, like they infiltrated her house, they forced her out or whatever, she had to, first of all, I wouldn't have made it so that she discovered the map then. I would have made it so that something in the fight gave her the answer that she needed to discover the map then. Not she just gets it right then, because that just seemed so easy to me. And then when she is forced to face Shin, I would have made her go to what she knows, which is being a Mandalorian. She didn't put on any armor. She didn't grab any helmet. She didn't grab any Mandalorian weapons. She went right to the thing that she claims that she's not that good at. Why'd you do that? Why did you do that? I'm not saying she shouldn't have had it with her. She did wield the Darksaber for a short time, but it just seems like she should have been dragged, kicked. She should have only activated that damn lightsaber as a last resort when she had to, because she saw that what she had was not working. And I feel like her journey should be integrating, this is what I have as a Mandalorian, and this is what I have as a quote unquote lightsaber wielding force sensitive person. And her trying to go, oh, okay, I need to be a Jedi. And then as the story goes on, Ahsoka comes to the realization that she doesn't need to be a Jedi. She needs to be who she is. Like, I don't feel like Ahsoka should have that realization now. I feel like it's something that Ahsoka should grow into herself, so that she can give that and say, listen, you need to take all the gifts that you have and combine that. Because we saw Bo-Katan, we saw her wielding the Darksaber, and she was a badass. So clearly, it's something that can be done. Sabine should just be where we get at the end of this, where Sabine is able to wield a lightsaber, she should just be that much better than what Bo-Katan was. When she reaches that realization, her journey in this season is complete. She should get to that point where she's like, yes, I'm a Mandalorian, but yes, I am this too. Why do I have to choose between
one or the other?
One or the other, which is a total rebuking of what Luke was trying to make
Grogu
do. And that is her journey. That is the journey that this story should be about.
Yes. The other thing that I felt like wasn't really hasn't come out yet, right? Hasn't been explored or wasn't made clear in those first 2 episodes, right? Is why she's stuck, right? Why she's not ready, right? Because she goes through that whole thing, which I liked. You know, she's cutting off her hair, she's putting on her armor on, right? She's revving herself up. She's like, we're gonna fucking do this. I'm gonna commit to it. All right, cool. Why did it seem like you weren't that before, right?
Yeah.
Now, for those that watch Rebels, like the place she's hiding out is Ezra's tower, right?
Ezra's tower, yeah.
Right. So clearly, it has something to do with Ezra, and
Right.
it's might be one of the things. Is like, hey, maybe this is where they're being subtle with the writing, right? And they had her Mandalorian gear sort of packed away, but they haven't yet gone and said, this is what was holding me back.
The way she was kind of living, I kind of took it her being stuck in grief, only because she kept referring back to the same video, you know, just like you.
And there was something about
you know,
like being stuck in the past.
The saber is not yours, but you modified it so it made it yours. So I took it as a grief kind of thing. But still, I agree. But like I said, it's interesting how they're using the time. Like certain things they'll lean in on, and certain things they kind of leave vague. And it's just interesting because we have plenty of time and space for those kind of conversations or to go deeper with. It's interesting. Yeah, it has an interesting flow.
I feel like she should have agreed to go on the mission with Ahsoka, but like said, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna help you, but I'm not a Jedi, and she should be drugged, kicking and screaming to embracing that part. Because could you imagine, like, she spends the majority of the show fighting back at that back, and then you get to that one of those last final episodes where she has to face off against Shin. She's getting her ass kicked, and she finally, in that last minute, decides to go, I'm gonna embrace this, and she activates that lightsaber, and everyone in the crowd goes, yes, and she starts
The
utilizing
classic
both
breakthrough moment.
her skill as both a Mandalorian and a Jedi, and she's able to hold her own. And I just feel like they've blown their wad already.
Well, they're definitely going to face off again, because in the trailer there is a moment where they are fighting in the woods somewhere, and Shin says, "You have no power."
Right.
Right.
You know, it's a call to action.
Right.
Yeah.
You know,
I want to hear her say something like, I have my own power, or not the power that you have, or, you know, something like that, to say, yeah, I don't have the power that you think I should have.
I reject your premise.
Yeah. Because a big thing of when you get to when the hero comes to their realization, they're supposed to be stuck in a situation between a rock and a hard place, and they're supposed to, in order to win, pick banana. They're supposed to pick that one thing that you don't understand how they're going to get there until they pick it, and you go, oh, yeah, that works. I hadn't thought of that. And I feel like they're blowing it. I mean, they could, you know, we'll see. We're only 3 episodes in, but.
Exactly. 3. Yeah, so I don't know. So as they continue on in their journey, they're in hyperspace, and they jump out of hyperspace because they detect a planet and they see something and they're trying to investigate. And it's part of the Jedi protocol to
jump out of hyperspace at a safe distance.
Yes, and then kind of, you know, case the joint.
Which straight up is the smart move as someone that runs a Star Wars role-playing game. And it's like, how close do you guys want to jump to the planet? And they're like, oh, good point. Far away.
Exactly. And so when they're investigating, they kind of get found out, and trouble ensues.
So for the enemy starfighters,
Yeah.
what if any vibes did either of you get from it? Because like
Like the way they looked.
the way they looked, because like of course like George Lucas made it very clear that all the starfighter stuff comes from old like World War II footage of like bombers and fighters and all that sort of stuff, and has that sort of vibe. So the starfighter that the enemy, like Shin had a special variant, like it straight up reminded me of a F4F Wildcat, right? Is a very sort of a fat fuselage. Like it's just a giant fucking engine with some little wings.
Yeah.
And that was an early sort of plane. And it's only because I played the War Thunder game, which is like aerial combat and tanks.
Yeah.
And it's like that starfighter that they had looked like, at first I was like, oh, is that like a Japanese Zero? And I was like, nah, the profile's totally wrong.
That's what I was thinking. I was thinking Zero.
Yeah, but the wings don't. The Zero's wings, I think, go down and then up, right?
Yeah, down
these
and
ones
up,
are just
yeah.
flat. So I was like, at first, I was like, man, these are like Zeros or something. But it very much like, ooh, we are going solid sort of World War II vibes here with that whole starfighter little scene that they had
So what did you guys think of the banter?
during the combat.
Because Ahsoka, she takes the wheel, and then you have Sabine, she's the gunner.
Yeah.
What did you guys think of that back and forth? Did you guys
didn't-
think anything in particular when you saw it?
It didn't seem frantic enough.
Huh.
And I think it goes back to what E was sort of saying. Like, it didn't feel like they were in the same room. I mean, like literally they're in different parts of the ship.
Right.
But like, it just didn't feel like they were under attack. It didn't feel like they were sort of like yelling information back and forth, right? It's a little like,
Yeah.
I got one. I do. The parts I did like, because I'm a sucker for this shit, is just the coordination that they were doing, right? Where
Yeah.
Ahsoka was like, all right, instead of me trying to like run the show, Sabine, what do you need me to do? You're in the gunner seat. What do you need me to do? Oh, okay, get ready to dive. Dive now, boom,
Yeah.
right? Just that little bit of coordination again, like in the Mando season 3 when Bo-Katan and Din like were attacked by the starfighters, and then like
Yeah.
you go left, I'll go right, like that sort of stuff. I'm a sucker for that, and that
Yeah.
stuff that worked. But at the same time, also some of the delivery just wasn't pumped up enough.
Yeah. I liked it, but my issue was kind of like, it's like they was trying to show, they was trying to tell something about their relationship, right? Like
Mhm.
one giving up, the other one giving, and it's just kind of like the reversal of roles. Like, what do you need from me? It's like the parent getting stuck in their, caught in their tracks, right? Like they think they're doing a great job, and the kid be like, all I wanted from you was a hug, right? And he's just like,
Right.
wait, okay, let me back up. I think I'm driving into the right place, but I'm really in the wrong place. Where do you need me to be? So that's what they were doing. I just don't think that was the place they should have been doing it at, because I thought it was kind of weird that the gunner was kind of steering, telling us the driver where to go. I thought that was like backwards, and I'm like, but it played into their story and what they were
Right.
trying to do, but I
Within
don't
their
think it should have been used there.
dynamic.
Right, but it
Within
shouldn't
their
have been
dynamic,
used
it
there.
worked, but in the scenario,
Because it
was
didn't make
like,
no sense that you're flying, you're trying to get away, and you worried about lining up with where the gunner is trying to do, and you're outnumbered and trying to get away. So I thought it was just kind of like, I never heard of the gunner ever telling the captain where to fly or where to go. It just seemed a little backwards.
I could buy it a little bit if it
and-
was just like roll left, right? Or
Or something.
Even the captain going, I'm
Or
about to roll
something,
left. Rolling
but-
left, rolling right, diving. And
but
then the
the
gunner being
tail-
like, got it.
Yeah, but the tail doesn't steer the head, and it just and I thought like, this is not the place for that. I see it, I get it, but this isn't the place for it. But I understand what they were trying to do with it. Like, what do you need, student? What do you need from me? And this is the conversation they could have had on the ship earlier when they were just sitting there talking about the Force in circles, or talking about the training in circles. This could have been expressed in that situation.
Yeah, Sabine could have made a comment like, I'm not a Jedi, I can't read you. Like, she could have been missing, and then Ahsoka could have been like saying something to her, not necessarily like, feel the Force or something. She could have just been saying something like,
this
you
method
need to,
is not working for me. Can
yeah,
we try a different method?
Yeah,
right?
and Sabine could have said, "I'm not a Jedi. I need you to tell me what's going on." And then, like Jay said, then Ahsoka goes, "Okay, this is what I'm going to do." And she starts literally telling her, banking, turn it right, turn it left, pulling up, and then Sabine can here's what she's saying, and then they can get back on the same page. And then towards the end, Sabine is able to do it on her own because she kind of can remember how they used to coordinate with each other, maybe.
Right. I mean, another thing that they might have done is take you have to sense where I am, right? That whole training thing, and play it into, we are in combat now.
Right.
I need you to sense where they are going to be.
Yeah, because it can't be you steering me. And then I think some of the tension was taken out of that, even though it could have been a real tense situation, but it kept being broken because she was like, oh, I got one. Oh, I got another one. It was too much self-high-fiving when you were in the middle of a whole bunch going on.
The celebrations
that should have waited. That should have waited.
If they were, teenagers or younger, for Sabine's like, got him, right? I mean, Luke does the same thing.
Yeah.
And he's like an older teenager, but Sabine's not a teenager.
Right.
She's late 20s, maybe 30s from the timeline.
But she the one that want to show up for the meeting, and she's sliding under, so she's doing all the stuff. But like I said, but we were talking about that before about how she's acting as if she's like young, and it just doesn't match up with who she is.
And I agree with that, and I think probably part of that is like, well, I hate to do this, but who's the audience?
No, target audience. Yeah, that's always a factor. It's always a factor.
But they could have had her be just like, have a smaller, got it, all right, and then move to the next one. Also, the scene took, and this is just the starfighter combat where they're getting shot at.
Right.
They were getting shot at for a very long time, and it didn't feel like the starfighters were effective whatsoever.
Yeah.
Like, it was only when they got to the big ring when it was like, ooh, our shields, the deflectors are dropping, blah, blah, blah. It's not like they should have been taking damage, like almost from from these starfighters, because that just ratchets up. Like, we have to get away or shoot these things as fast as possible.
Yeah.
And it just felt like ping, 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 ping.
Yeah, it wasn't tight. And like I said, just that self-congratulating when we're in the middle of it. It's like, if you're louder than me, then I'll just give it to you. But I prefer you let me give it to you. Let me be the one to be like, But for you to do it already, it's like, okay, you got it.
They need to let go of the my audience is a child thing. They really need to. Because, like, how many kids went to go see, Marvel's Endgame and Infinity War and got what they needed out of it? And the parents,
not nearly as many as the adults.
Right.
You true, but I mean, it's kind of like that thing of like, there's ways to do things where the kids get what they need out of it and the adults get what they need out of it too.
Yeah.
And you don't have to you don't need to, Stan Lee made his whole thing off of not talking down to kids. That's what Marvel is. Don't talk down to kids. We don't need it. Just give people authentic emotions. Lead your audience where you want them to feel authentically, and they'll get it. And if the kid doesn't get it, they're too young to get it, and they're only there for the lightsabers anyway.
What we don't need is 6 or 7-year-old Anakin in a Naboo starfighter going, "Yay!"
Yeah. Oh.
But even
and it's an adult.
Yeah, exactly. It's interesting because Ryan, you and I spoke about this before, about that whole tone thing, and the truth is like, it's a hard place for them to be in, because truly, when it's adult Star Wars, it's rejected. When it's like a different take on things,
for a long time until Andor came on, right?
Well, their attempts, because those movies were more mature Star Wars, and those didn't work.
Because they were bad.
Right, but that's when they tried that. So they almost reverted back to, well, this is a safe crowd here. And even that, I don't know, it's a fine line between, pandering and I don't know, it's hard. And we do have people that know what they're doing, and we do have people who love this lore, and it can be hard because, like I said, that audience, you just don't.
Speaking of people that don't know how to do something, apparently the people that are building the giant Imperial hyperspace ring only have guns that point backwards? Because their ship, like, get closer so we can scan it. Get closer. Oh, we're taking damage. Oh, they get like in the middle of the ring and are like adrift going past it, and it's like, oh, they're in front of us now. We can't shoot it anymore. I'm like, you.
Yeah, to the point she thinks that she got them, and then shit is like,
we only have the sensors
no.
that point backwards, and she's like, yeah, you lost track of them. That doesn't mean they're dead.
right,
And I love that she doesn't have to say it.
right,
Right, but it's just like, yeah, we know. We didn't see him die. They're not dead.
Yeah,
like,
because she kind of like, well, I'm going. Yeah,
she's genre savvy.
Like, oh, you think they're dead? Not. I'm gonna go finish the job you didn't finish. I'll be right back. I'll handle it. Don't worry about it, Mom. I got it. And so after they're adrift, right? And it's amazing because you think that they wouldn't have survived that long with all that fire upon them, but they did survive it. And so at the ideal time, after they got the scan they needed, they're stuck in their adrift. And with that, what are they gonna do? Ahsoka, she has an idea.
She gonna step outside of her
Gonna step outside, right?
and fight fighters with her lightsaber.
Now, I'm not a space shuttle mechanic. I don't even know how it worked, but I'm still trying to figure out how, when, say, let's use a car for an example, right? Your windows are blown out, you got flat tires, and people don't shut up your car, right? If I go in under the steering wheel and mess with the fuse box, how does that start my car back up?
So when a U.S. naval submarine breaks down, do you have to get outside the submarine to fix it, or do they fix most of it from the inside?
Well, I'm assuming it was sync.
Well, this happens.
Ryan, I'm not gonna let you fix it tonight. I'm not gonna let you try to. I'm not
that
here.
doesn't bother me.
See, this is my point. That
doesn't bother me. They've been doing that on Star Wars for I don't know how long.
But Ryan, this is what I'm talking about. You see, you're trying to fix it.
Here, Jay. I will give you a thing that I was like, what the fuck, when this scene started, because it's like she's like, I'm gonna go do the thing, and I'm like, clearly she's gonna go outside the ship. And my brain was like, immediately I was like, but what I forget, like Lucre or whatever, her little headstock.
Yeah.
Her braids.
Her helmet.
Right?
I was like, oh my god, her helmet is the same shape.
How did she put it on that damn fast?
Exactly.
How
did she get it on?
She slipped those on? Like, how did she? And she just walked out. So how did
I was thinking about this like today, and I was like, she has to like take her like two little shoulder ones and like throw them back over her shoulder, and then pull the helmet backwards over the back of her head, over the front of her. And it's just like, whatever. If like, clearly she got it custom made, like, whatever. Okay,
I was like,
cool.
how does she get it on?
She got the same person who be doing Mr. Terrific's braids on Arrow.
Oh, just, you gotta let it go.
Yeah,
and
the
you gotta let
10-second
it go.
cornrows.
Just like, okay,
He wears a wig
somehow.
and he just pulls it off. That's how
If-
this Terrific did. He wore a wig.
If they had done 10 seconds worth of cutting back between Sabine on the bridge, being like, they're like reading off the distance, like they're getting closer, and it's clearly like chunks of time, and then it's just cutting to like,
that'd have been cool. I'm
her
getting ready.
pulling on a boot,
Right.
her pulling on a glove, like, we got it. All right, she does her little Iron Man suiting up thing, and we get that, like, they're getting closer.
That'd have been
They're getting
tight.
closer.
That's a
They're
Hitchcock.
getting closer.
Yeah,
they're
got
getting
that
closer,
tense.
right? And then boom, she's out the airlock.
Right.
A funny thing, my buddy Esteban, like, was hitting me up on Discord and is like, oh, so lightsabers can fend off like large vehicle fire. And like, I was like, yep, that's the thing. And then I was like, later today, I was like, oh, actually they did that in the Dark Empire run. I had the graphic novel, and there's a whole bit where this is where, like, Again, this is the legacy canon, so none of it happened now.
Yep, don't count. Legacy
Don't
canon,
count.
don't count.
But whatever, I'm throwing it in there. But like it starts off with like they're at war somewhere and they're like, where's Luke, and he comes out of a cave in the middle of the battle and there's a giant AT-AT and it like looks right at him and like starts shooting at him. And again, these are the AT-ATs from Hoth, the big four-legged things, and he just like turns on his lightsaber and just bounces it back right in his face, like destroys the head, and then he uses the Force to just knock the thing over.
Wow.
He should have just force kicked the leg out from under.
Sweep the leg. You have a problem with that?
No, Sensei.
I mean, well,
Sweep
So,
the
like,
leg, Johnny. Sweep the leg.
So like her whole like I'm putting on a spacesuit and I'm jumping outside and I got magnetic boots, like none of that was like, this is ridiculous. I'm like, it's fucking Star Wars. Like it could have been better. It could have been better.
And like I said, they kind of pulled it off. It was fine, but it's just like there was a lot of grandstanding and stuff. It was just very interesting.
Even a small thing I thought of today would be like, all right, if I had an exosuit and I was gonna like, I'm not R2D2. I don't have like magnetic rollers, right? Like in Phantom Menace, and I can just roll myself across a ship. I've got those boots, and if I lose them, I don't have a jetpack like R2D2. You know what I need? I need a Naboo ascension gun so I can shoot a harpoon line back to the ship and pull me to it, right? So I feel like they tried to play it as a little bit of a joke where it's like, after she deflects stuff and gets knocked off, then it's like, come pick me up.
Right.
She's floating across the view screen. It was like, I felt like they were trying to make a little gag there, right?
Yeah.
Of like, come pick me up. But if she'd had, like, if I built that suit, I'd have like a little magnetic harpoon gun and just be like, pull me back to the ship, and she would have handled it all herself.
Yeah, I think this thing was just made to show that she's a badass, and I think that it wasn't worth it to do it like that. I already thought she was when she's been cutting through stuff and jumping out of windows and stuff. To me, those have been tight, cool scenes, but some of the stuff, it just seemed like, and I don't know, I might not lead this in, but it's just a whole bunch of girl power moments that I was just kind of like, if anybody else would do that, you would still be looking sideways at it. Like come on.
Well, that's the thing. If it was anyone else, it would still be like, yeah, that's Star Wars ridiculous.
Yeah, like, come on. And it was fine, but she just kept flipping back and forth and just like, I guess. But it was cool how she, got back stuck to the magnetized back onto the ship, because the ship kind of came around and got her, and she just, in the perfect amount of time, she
picked her up with the wing,
right, and just dipped her into the ship, and they take off and fly away.
And they fly exactly to the next plot point.
Yeah,
there was
no one plot blocking there.
They did specify the hyperdrive is down, so they can't jump out. So it's like, all right, we got to go somewhere where we're not going to get shot down, and we can do the repairs.
And you know what? They found the perfect place to hide. Star Wars Into the Darkness.
Jay was sending me the opening of Star Trek Into Darkness.
They'll never find him. They'll never find him there on that red forest-filled planet. They'll never find him there. Kirk is there.
The volcano doesn't go off.
Spock is there. They'll never find him there. Too much. As soon as I saw that, I'm just like, as soon as I saw that red forest, I texted Ryan. I was like, oh, so did you saw episode 3, right? And I was like, I seen something that looks familiar to me. Like I said, I swear this show borrows from, and we talked about it last episode, it borrows from Star Trek, new Star Trek. And if I kind of thought it the first time, I got confirmation this time with that red, because I can't remember anywhere, and I was trying to be cool. I was like, Ryan, do you remember this from any past lore or anything that you've seen before? Because the last place and the only place I've seen it was on Star Trek. So I'm just checking, because I don't want to be a jerk about it, but it's just like, yeah.
See, originally when you were texting me, I thought you meant like you were saying the red planet. And I was like, oh, does he mean the one from The Last Jedi with like the salt and the red salt?
Yeah. But I thought it was funny. So they kind of land there to hide, and they turn everything down because that's Jedi protocol once again,
including the robot,
which is cool, because they couldn't scan, because when they were looking for him, they couldn't sense him, because Shin kept flying by, and then you know. And matter of fact, and when she says something to that space Snake Eyes that they won't show his face, I'm like, yeah, Ryan was straight up right, because they even given him talking scenes, and his talking is distorted. Like Ryan is right. Like, yeah, I think
It's got to be
right.
someone, but
Yeah.
it better not be Ezra, because that would be fucking dumb. At the end of Rebels,
Mhm.
the Purgle, the space whales,
Yeah.
they grab Thrawn's entire Star Destroyer with Ezra and him on the bridge, and they yank them
Yank
into
it.
hyperspace. So
Yeah.
they're both gone, presumably to this other galaxy. So if anyone's turned anyone, it would be Thrawn somehow trying to turn Ezra,
Mm.
right? But the premise is that no one's come back, right? So either Ezra's magically come back and got turned, and then this, and then that, and it's like,
Could he have fell out of the stream and dropped off earlier?
I don't know. It just seems so antithetical to everything that they did with Ezra. Like, granted, he worked with Maul for a while because, again, you gotta be tempted by the dark side.
Right.
But like Ezra, yeah, that doesn't seem to fit. That he would see Ahsoka and be like, "Hey, Ahsoka, what's up?" People were super important to him.
Have you seen Tron Legacy?
Yes.
You remember when Tron was sitting up there and he didn't know who he was and he was fighting?
Oh God, if they do the amnesia plotline, I'm going to wad up a small piece of paper that's due for the trash bin and throw it in the trash.
We've seen it
that's
many of
just
times where you see that familiar face and like, what happened to them? It's just like, you know, they've been corrupted.
That would be fucking dumb.
We'll see.
Yeah, we don't know what Balin and Shin's real, you know, they're not Sith and they were Jedi, so I mean it's possible that
At least
whole...
Balin was definitely Jedi. Balin's
Yeah.
definitely
Yeah.
former Jedi. Shin is
and-
probably someone he found along the way.
Exactly, but he's training her like a Padawan. He's not training her
Mhm.
like a Sith second, you know.
Yeah.
So there is something different about what they're doing and how they're doing it. So yeah, I think that's still something that,
I am very
Waiting to
interested to
see.
see their dynamic continue to
Yeah.
evolve.
and you can tell that Shin doesn't trust like Morgan Elsbeth.
No.
You know, she don't like witches, and
I love it because, like I said, anytime she tells anything to Balin, she always look at her and be like, you know, so what do you say, Master? She always go to him for confirmation, regardless, and I
Yeah.
love that because her allegiance is strong and very clear. It's interesting, even though they're not the main focus, them two, they really caught me as far as like really wanting to lean into their story. I wish we get more scenes of them, you know, with more going on, because I dig their dynamic more so than I do Ahsoka and Sabine.
Yeah.
Like, I want to dig their relationship, but to me, even though they have more time spent with them, it's like almost more is taken away, and maybe because of what the more is.
Balin and Shin just have different energy.
Yeah, for sure.
Balin is just a rock, right, of certainty, and that's part of just he's big and he has the presence and unflappable, right?
Yeah.
And Shin, you've got a little bit of that nervous energy, right? She's not jittery,
Mhm.
but she's alert, right? And looking to her master and ready to rock and roll. And that comes through, like, they're very consistent in both of those performances, right?
Yeah.
And so that
she's very much
energy
an
is there.
arrow to be pointed. She's
Yeah.
very much an arrow to be pointed.
And has
Yeah.
no problem with that, and I love that. It's just
Yeah.
like where you want me kind of thing. You never see her questioning anything he's saying. You never hear her. She's just like,
So I forget where I came across this. It was probably in, like, you know, some podcast talking about movies and something like that. But like, there's sometimes you get like couples in a movie, and what a lot of writers do is they mine the couple's relationship for conflict, right? So to add drama. And sometimes people just love it when you get a couple where they are on the same page and they just work well together, and
Yeah.
they are not an internal source of tension, right?
Mhm.
It's them, their drama is not working through their shit, right? They got each other's backs, they
Right.
just work, right? And it's the drama from everything else. And I feel like Balin and Shin they do not have internal drama.
Yeah,
No.
remind me of things like The Amazing Race when you have couples and you have the ones that just like they're reading each other's thoughts and yeah, honey, this, and it's just like, damn. And you see the
Right?
other ones they're complaining about, well, I'm gonna drive, you're gonna drive. It's like they're already down the street. They already worked it out.
And
Yeah.
going back to Marvel, that is the first Avengers movie before they get their shit together and after they get their shit together, right?
Yeah.
Because we get that wonderful shot of like them all coming down onto that bridge, that raised road,
Mhm.
right? And Cap's, reflecting Iron Man's blast, and they're
Mhm.
just bouncing off each other and they're vibing, right?
Mhm.
They're on the same page. And so I like it when characters work like that. It's
Mm.
fucking really cool, right?
Because every person knows their place in the game. Each person knows, like Shin knows what her place is. Balin knows what his place is, and
Yeah.
this is how we work. So
Right.
let's get to
I
work.
was thinking about this the other day because I used to play a lot of first person shooters with my buddy Mang, and like we would just roll. Usually, sometimes other friends would join, but like we had our own little short like information bursts of like contact left, contact right, grenade out here, all this sort of stuff. And the funniest bit was Mang has his left and rights reversed, right? When
Yeah.
he's under stress, right, having to think fast, for whatever reason his left and rights are reversed. But the thing is, I played with him so often that I would just switch it in my head when he's calling out like grenade left, contact left. I mean, okay, turn to the right and shoot.
Yeah.
Right? So that's part of what makes that fun, of really just like being on the same page. To get a scene like that, like I feel like they were trying to do that a little bit with Ahsoka and Sabine.
Yeah.
Right? A little bit of them cooperating and switching the dynamic, but like
Like I said,
yeah.
it was just so telegraphed.
Yeah.
It rubbed me funny but like I said, it was nice to see Shin with Balin and their relationship, and the fact that usually when you have a character like that, they're always trying to undercut the head, or they have this extra plot thing that they're doing on the side, or
just
whatever. But-
unhealthy codependency.
yeah, it's just something. Just they want to get from under them, or they want to take their place. There's always some other side thing in their head that they got plans
Yeah.
that have nothing to do with the lead. And so for her to just be young and have that kind of energy, and she is a willing participant. It's beautiful. It's very powerful. And usually you don't
And-
see it like that, because like you
and
said,
he
they want that
trusts
tension.
her. Like
Yeah.
he just says, "Go to the planet and do the thing."
And he don't do a
Go
lot of
here.
talking too. He'll do a lot
Right?
of
He
explaining.
trusts-
He'll do a lot of talking. He'd be like, that way. Go there. Pick that up. No extra information.
And she doesn't need it.
Yeah.
She doesn't need the explanation. I think that like if they play it right, like we're talking about what they tried to do with Ahsoka and Sabine in the ship, because we talk about how there's the mirrors, right? The mirror of the villain, quote unquote. It'd be a wonderful foil to have the heroes not being able to get their shit together and jive. And then you have these two, and not only does it speak to that theme of them not working well together and that being their journey, but it also kind of calls to the fact that they're not Sith. They're not Sith. Like she looks to him with respect that a Padawan looks to his master. Like Jay says, he doesn't have to give explanation, and she don't need explanation. She's a better Padawan than Anakin was.
Right.
That's a low
Right.
bar.
She's a better Padawan than probably most Padawans that we've seen in the Order were.
Yeah.
Like when you look at, what was her name, Beru, who was the one who actually betrayed Ahsoka.
Oh
was
yeah, I
it-
think it was.
Wasn't
Bear.
she Shakti's Padawan? I feel like
I
I'm not
think
sure. I
so.
can't remember. But no, it wasn't Shakti, but it was another female. I can't remember. But yeah, of all the Padawans we've seen, all of them had a little bit of
Resistance.
yeah, resistance, and she doesn't have any of it at all. She's like the total 100% opposite of a Sith. She's not trying to overthrow Balin. She's not looking for her chance, like
That's what I'm
Jay
saying, yeah.
said. Even in the first episode 1, you don't get a lot of interplay between Darth Maul and Darth Sidious, but Darth Maul does what Darth Sidious says, and he's like, "Yeah, Master," but you still get the sense that if he gets a chance, he'll try to cut that motherfucker. You don't get that from her. She is 100% invested and down with whatever Balin says. If he says it, she does it in the story. That's it.
And only him saying it.
Only him. He is her master, and that is it.
She's not doing any contract work.
It could be such a clear dichotomy that they could play with, and I feel like they're dropping the ball. And I always think that the best movies have very simple stories, and all of the depth and the subtext comes in the complexity of the theme and the psychological oppositions. And I feel like they're dropping the ball on a lot of that, you know. So
Yeah, it's interesting because like we'll have to see again how soon Thrawn comes in, of like who is the primary antagonist for Ahsoka and Sabine. And it's probably going to be Baylan and Shin. Like, I don't feel like it's Morgan. I don't even think it's Thrawn, right? They're playing a different game, and all they want to do is stop Elsbeth from bringing back Thrawn. If Thrawn was the villain, we would have had a scene with him scheming in this other galaxy in the first or second episode, right? To set up who is driving stuff. And right now it's Baylan and Shin.
I feel like Thrawn is the looming threat that I talked about.
Yeah, he's the MacGuffin.
He's going to be the person that we shouldn't even see until the last scene of this season.
If they do, also, I feel like is a total cop-out's not the right word, but like a bait and switch.
Yeah.
Right? I'm like, oh, it's Thrawn. And then it's like, yeah, the last 5 minutes, show up for the next season or show up for the movie.
I'm hoping Baylan and Shin we don't know. I'm hoping we find out that what they want is not what we think. I feel like
yeah, because all we've got is Baylan is like, there's like, he doesn't say ultimate power, which thank God, but it's something like, you know, power beyond what you can comprehend, right? So it's like, okay, so Baylan sees an end game for what he and Shin want, and it may have nothing to do with Thrawn. Thrawn and this whole thing is just probably a stepping stone for what he wants. Right?
He could be trying to get to that. He could be trying to go back in time and save the Order, you know. And he could have the same feeling that what's the name hands in Andor, where he's like, "Listen, I want the Order back, and I'm willing to do some shady shit to do it."
If Baylan knows about the world between worlds and it comes into play, that's gonna be fucking wild. I don't know. I worry that if they start playing around with that and people realize that technically time travel is kind of allowed in Star Wars, there's going to be some people being like, retcon the sequels, which they're not going to do. They're not going to do. They're already setting up new movies with Rey. And God, I hope.
Oh, they're not. They're not.
They pulled it already?
No, Catherine Kennedy announced that, and she did it without Iger's consent. Oh. That movie's not getting made. Those movies aren't being made.
Yeah.
That's egg on the face.
Yeah. You know what? They might pull off Thrawn like they did in The Mandalorian with Moff Gideon, where he was kind of brought up and then he came out.
Oh, God, showed up for like the last 2 episodes and then just went down like a fucking bitch punk? No.
Exactly.
No.
It might be one of those kind of things.
I don't think Dave Filoni is that stupid. He had Thrawn in the Rebels show. He understands how big a deal Thrawn is. To just like, I think he is going to be the villain for the big movie, the big tie-in movie, where it's all the stuff from this time period, like Ahsoka and Mando and whatever else. And
that's fine, but I feel so far it's not enough journey in this journey.
Well, yeah, but who knows? Maybe next episode they get to the other galaxy and get Thrawn, and like the second half is all dealing with Thrawn. I don't know.
Maybe
that'd be kind of fast. I'm guessing the fight that we seen between Baylan and Ahsoka is going to happen next episode, because it's at the hologram monolith place, and that's right next to the woods. So I'm pretty sure that fight's going down next episode.
The pace of this show is so different. It's hard to tell like what's going to happen next, just because, you know, like I said, we spent pretty much just figuring out what the game plan was, even though we knew it in the first episode. It took like 3 episodes for it to get this far down the line. You know what I mean? We spent a lot of time
meandering,
trying to figure out what's going on and deciphering the map and finding the map and
meandering.
Is she is she gonna even come or not, or where she
Wandering around the
you
back
know,
alleys of Coruscant.
back and forth to her hideaway, and then all this back and forth between the ship to train and to talk about her behind her back, and then to go see her again, then go back to. It's just so if all that is happening in the first 3, do we expect it to speed up? Do we expect for how much can happen? Like, I don't, with the pacing of it, it's hard for me to understand what the pace could possibly be for the back half.
Yeah. Well, also, we don't know what this was the thing with the other seasons too, is we don't know what the sort of like the end game is, right? So
Do
we
you
don't know
feel-
how many things need to be set up and how quickly they're going to burn through them, right? How much is it going to be character development? How much is it going to be action? How much are they going to manage to do both of those things at the same time?
Yeah, because
Right? Because you should have character development as part of your action.
Sure, and I don't mind that. I think we need that because that makes us want to buckle up in the ride versus being like, I could jump out whenever I want to. Yeah, you want to be tethered, you want to be connected, and even though you don't know where the car is going, you want to go for that ride and find out. And that's how it should be, and that's what those little details and those little nuances are supposed to do. Do you feel that with the pace and everything so far, do you feel that we have enough information for you to feel like this could be landed with the road left? And I don't mean landed like, no tires and the hood flipped off and the car smoking. I mean, do you think we're in a good place for something to be introduced, right? Which it hasn't quite yet, but for something to be introduced, and we're in 3 going to 4, and then for that introduction to be resolved in 4 on the back end. Do we have enough road? Do we have enough road for that?
Are there's 6 episodes in a season?
8.
8.
8.
Uh-huh.
I think so. So like we're talking about 3.
Mhm.
If 4,
So it got to be the introduction of something.
yeah, like a big thing has to shift, right?
Yes.
Like Ahsoka and Balin are gonna fight, I think, next episode, and I think the ring ship needs to be leaving episode 4, episode 5, and they need to arrive in this other galaxy. Because then, if you do that in 4, you've got presumably 4 episodes
Mhm.
left to
Back in.
resolve, find out what's going on there, realize how big the problem is. Right? Thrawn leaves without them. They have to figure out how to get back on their own. I'm betting you they're going to get abandoned there, and the Purgle are going to bring them back. Because the Purgle are the one that are already jumping between the galaxies.
And they brought them up too many times already. We've seen them and they've been mentioned.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's enough to, they leave the galaxy, right? They go with the ring ship. They arrive in the other galaxy. They find Thrawn. They maybe find Ezra. Thrawn gets picked up, and the good guys get left in the other galaxy. And now with Ezra and the Purgle, they have to come back and warn the Republic and blah, 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 blah. And maybe you get a big confrontation because Hera doesn't know anything that's going on. And I would not be surprised, and this would be the smart thing, is like, I don't know why you can't just task like 2 X-Wings to just go and check a spot.
Right.
Like, even when Ahsoka jumps into the system at a distance, it's like, hey, they're building a giant ring thing. Oh, there's starfighters coming towards us? Cool. Oh, they're jamming us? Let's get the fuck out of here and go report back.
Right.
Womp womp. Like, okay, let's go get a whole flight crew.
Yeah, here
like,
come the cavalry.
we didn't scan anything, but it's like clearly they're building stuff. Like, we can see like that's where the hyperdrive went, doing a thing. We need backup. Let's go.
We have confirmation of intent.
Right.
Let's go.
But I think there's enough runway where you could, and they need to raise the stakes every episode. And I
Yes.
think that can be tricky. And I haven't really seen them. I feel like they didn't really do that in any of the Mandalorian seasons for the most part. Like, not consistently, right? You
Right.
would get like maybe the first 2 episodes that would sort of set things off, and then a bunch of blah, 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 blah. And then the last 2 episodes, they try and crank things up again. I want to see them crank up the intensity and maintain it, right? Like, you got to have your down scenes, right? You got to have your room to breathe, and it becomes tricky. It's like, this episode really is like 30 minutes. Like, if you get rid of like the last time on Star Wars, like the recap, it's less than 30 minutes, and then the credits start, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if they're gonna, have longer episodes. They're gonna be 30 minutes, but like, I think you can cram in a escalating story. I want to see it escalate.
Yeah.
I don't think it's that they don't have enough time, because they're filling episodes with a bunch of paper waste. The story could be a lot tighter.
Yeah,
It could be a lot tighter.
Like, Andor took its time with things, but everything was dense. There was a lot of things.
Everything meant
There was-
something.
At the same time,
Everything meant
it
something.
was layered very nicely.
There could be a whole C plot right now about how they don't know who is working among them that is still loyal to the Empire, and Hera is trying to suss that out, and the only person that she can trust is Mon Mothma. Like, that could be a whole
Right. So
C
so
thing
here's the
that's
thing.
taking up space. and
Let's
they're
go
not
back to
doing
that
it.
scene. The one senator that seemed to be kind of shutting Hera down, and she was like, "Did you fight? Did you fight?" And he was like, "No, I didn't fight." What was your vibe on him?
I thought he was shady. Like, he was probably knew what was up already, and it was almost hard to tell who was possibly knew already or who was really working with Thrawn or
Right.
working towards getting him out.
So here's the thing, is he's an established character already. He's an established character in later stuff. There was a Resistance animated TV show, and he's not on the side of the First Order at all. His son's like a spy for the Resistance, fighting the First Order and stuff like that. So I don't know if they're intending to set him up as a foil for Hera, like a false foil of like, no, I just have reasonable objections and concerns about what you're doing, because it reads like, oh man, is this guy? Because the problem is, we know Hera's right?
Yes.
We know there's a bomb under the table, so we're
Mhm.
automatically on her side. And anyone else who would put forward like, well, what about this, and what about this, and what about this, and we know also, we've seen that there are people that are inside undermining the Republic.
Mhm.
So we're like, is this guy undermining this guy? And it's like,
But it could,
Yeah.
he's just
But it
bringing
could've
up
been any-
reasonable concerns.
but it could have been any of them because they all were looking suspicious about it. As I said,
Right.
nobody could. You couldn't really read.
Now, if
any
they
of
set that
them.
up as he is the red herring, and they are going to do who is the person undermining Hera's ability to get things done, and we think it's the senator,
Yeah.
but it's a red herring. If so, good job. And it's someone else or some other thing, right?
Yeah.
That would be interesting, right? Because it's
I
like,
think-
also, what is Hera going to do for this show?
I
Yeah.
feel like they're going that way, but I feel like they went too hard on making that guy be a poser. Like, it should have been more bureaucracy and more red tape and less like, I'm an asshole. The other thing that kind of bothered me is after they went to the shipyard and then they found out that, there was people that were still loyal to the whatever. Like, it felt to me like they just arrested everyone. Then they're like, okay, that threat's over now.
This is the problem with
No,
like,
it's not over. This should
Yeah.
be something that we keep going on with. It's not over.
it should be a major thing of like, and the problem is like, it's adventure storytelling, and it's like, we've beat up the bad guys, now we go on to the next thing. Is like, whoa, okay, so we need to have a meeting with the head of state for Corellia to like let them know, like, we need to talk to their security forces. Like, there would be a massive amount of like response to, oh shit, there's a whole bunch of like secret imperial
Scrolls. I mean,
loyalists.
not scrolls. I mean, Empire.
Oh man. But like, I agree, right? And if it was Andor, they would have that fallout, right?
Oh,
If they were
yeah.
doing that level of storytelling, there would have been like a whole episode dealing with the fallout. Like, fuck, Andor had a whole episode that was just dealing with the fallout from the heist,
Yeah.
right? And it was just all that, right?
Yeah.
So they could have done that.
But this is
That's
not that.
not the flavor of the show,
This
right?
is not that, but it do throw you off because you can't tell, the line. You don't know
Right.
their line of logic or anything, so you
Right.
don't know if they're playing with you or if this is a sign. Like I said, to me, there was no chancellors on there that didn't seem like they could be suspect, to be honest. And if I didn't see Mamatha, I would have thought that she was even kind of interesting. Because even like what she said, like, oh, didn't we get them? I'm like, why are you saying that? Now you know, and you deal with spies, so you ain't no way you know it's not that simple. So for her to even give that answer, it was just like, wait, huh? But I knew better because I know her, right? But everybody was kind of like looking at each other and stuff. I'm thinking like, so nobody, if two people out of those groups would have been like on her side and been like, let's support, let's help or something. But for everybody to just look shocked and questionable and then not stepping out.
Right.
It just like,
they
okay,
could have addressed that in that scene where Hera's like talking to Mon Mothma and the other ones, and it's like, I talked to the head of state for Corellia and their security services, and Mon Mothma's like, yes, I saw your report, I talked to them as well. New Republic intelligence is going to be, you know, digging into Corellia and see if there's any other connections.
Can this be verified?
Yeah, like, this is concerning, right? And the other senators could be like, yeah, but it's just like, it's a pocket of like, you know, we're still rooting them out, but it's like, yo, Mon Mothma was like, I dealt with fucking spies. Like, like, this is bad.
Yeah,
right.
And I can see the other senators then pushing back in that they were senators that were like, they never were active in the war effort. Like Mon Mothma was active as a rebel in the war effort.
You want the perfect sort of payoff too? So that Senator Xiaono, right, the one that was like pushing back on her and hadn't served, he's the senator for Hosnian Prime. That's the world that gets blown up in The Force Awakens by the First Order.
What I kind of feel about that scene and then why it kind of threw me off in the first place is that I think it was pretty much so it could be a setup for Hera to show that she's a badass. And I think it's, again, a situation where it's used to show that, but then it throws off something else. It almost gives up something to have that. Like the gunner scene, it gave us something to have that moment. It's like these moments they want, but they're not in the right place. Because like I said, I thought, I'm not even familiar with her character like that, but I felt that she was out of character. Like I said, of her attitude and how she was talking and stuff. Like, it could have been other ways to do that because it compromises the stability of the other things in the scene.
They're giving up long-term games for short-term,
and it's throwing off the other stuff. Like, okay, say she didn't have that kind of attitude, she didn't talk like that to him, right? He wouldn't have responded the way he would have, and it wouldn't have been like, what's up with that? Or it would have just kind of, I don't know. I just think some stuff was just done. Just like Ahsoka doing cartwheels on the outside of the ship. That was done to show how badass she was. But it compromised the scene in a way for me because it was just like, it was almost a little bit too much. Not that she can't do it. Not that it wasn't cool to see, but was it worth it? Like these moments that keep happening, it's like, is it worth the hit?
It would have brought more gravitas for her to be more politically deft and get what she wants, to outmaneuver him politically so that at the end of the thing, he had to agree with her because she used her knowledge of politics and playing the game to get him to go, okay, for now you win.
Right, but the writers need the scene for her not to be able to go and support Ahsoka, right?
Right.
So it's within that plot limitation. We need Hera to go and ask for help and get denied. Okay, so that's the plot outcome. What do we do character-wise that advances something with our understanding of the character, sets up a new challenge for them, a new arc or whatever? Like, she can fail at that scene, but like to Wakanda Forever, like, don't make her look incompetent at doing the I'm going to engage with my bosses. Yes, I'm a general and I know how to fucking wage a war.
Right.
But I have to now answer to the civilian leadership.
And that's going to bring up my point that I say quite often is the fact, like, I hate when they do stories where they'll put the person out of character to make them fit the environment versus the environment being what it is and that character being who they are and how they would handle that situation. Like the environment doesn't compromise them like that. Not like that. They
temporarily get handled the idiot.
Exactly. Versus you got to change to fit the situation. No, you don't change. The environment could be what it is, but you're going to circumvent that and you're going to be you within that environment. And this just felt like it needed to be that for that. Like they wanted to show this, they wanted to flex this, but they're flexing. It's compromising. And like I said, you could do it, but in other places you could have did it.
They could have set up a dynamic where she's already on thin ice, right? Because she has her aides talking to her right before and right after, right? And the aide doesn't do much more than like, oh, that didn't go well. But like, have the aide be like, you remember, do not piss off the other senators. You're already on thin ice.
Something.
Where it's like, you're a really great general. Like, yeah, it's like, you got Mon Mothma in your pocket, but you got to deal with the other 4.
Yeah.
Like, please, boss, hold your tongue.
Because it reads that they're unreasonable, but we don't know why. And I can't tell if it's the writing or the characters. And since you are not giving me that information, how am I supposed to read it? It's almost like, unless you expect everybody to know all the stuff. And if that's the case, then good luck for those who know. But it's just, I don't know. It's not.
Should have done a better job of trying to, they touch on it a little bit, but not enough to make it feel like it. But they should have done a better job of making it feel like the senators are trying to move on away from a war. And she is a general who fought a war, and that's not what they want to be doing anymore.
Right. It's like, we have a humanitarian project that Home 1 is supposed to be going towards, and you want to divert the entire fleet, right? Set it up where the Republic is stretched thin, they're beleaguered, they're trying to do a lot of things, and a bunch of them are not war footing, right? And so it's like, that makes it more reasonable, instead of just this vague sort of like, oh, you want to go and do, you're fighting ghosts, basically, right? You're seeing phantom threats. It's like, no, we have things we need you to do with these fleet, right? And it makes it easier to sell why in The Mandalorian they couldn't go and send like rebel fighters to go check on Navarro. They can't send like a squadron to go check on these coordinates that Ahsoka and that Hera have, right? It's like everything is stretched thin, and that makes this request for authorization to go do this side thing that they don't believe in reasonable for them to just be like, yeah, no, as opposed to just like, we don't think it's a thing, right?
Yeah, and it also, it's not fast paced enough for us to get lost in everything to not have time to look at these things. Part of this is because of the pacing, and if you're gonna move slow, your moves better be sharp.
The urgency is not there, right?
If you're gonna do that,
it could be if they stop wasting, like, they're moving the story fast, but
are they?
Well, what I mean is they're moving
the plot fast.
They're moving pieces fast, but when the pieces get to the point that they're supposed to be in, they stand around doing nothing.
Like I said, it felt like a stage play.
If you can get the characters there, and instead of lingering on these people doing nothing, then you cut to someone else doing something else in their own C plot, B plot, D plot. That's how Andor worked. We didn't spend a lot of time wasting our time when Andor was sleeping. Like, when Andor is sleeping, we went to go see what Mon Mothma was doing. When she wasn't doing anything and dealing with her husband, we went to go see what the other dude, the spy dude, was doing. We didn't waste time sitting with people that weren't doing anything. When people stopped doing shit that were interesting, we were like, let's go check on what this person's doing. Oh, they're doing something interesting. We're going to stay with them for 5 minutes.
You know, and another thing too, like with the training scene, as much as I liked the camera work, a lot of the camera work is just sort of static and sedentary, right? So like the whole space combat scene, like they're trying to do repairs, like I want a scene where like the camera work is showing urgency, not in the action, right? Not in what the person is doing, but the camera movement, the cutting, the editing shows urgency and rushing, right? Like if they're like, oh God, we got to get this thing fixed, we got to get this thing fixed, sliding out from under a thing, grabbing a thing, going back under, right? Having urgent, frantic action movement and camera movement to make you feel like shit's got to happen and move, right?
Yeah.
It's very sort of static shots, and I don't know how much of that is because they're shooting in the volume, right? It seems like they got a lot of components of real sets, and some places are like CG fest. Like I'm sure most of that. I know the fight she had at the scrapyard, right, with the Inquisitor and the droid. That's fully like CG. They just had like a green screen set and they just filled in everything else behind it. But a lot of the other stuff seems physical, but like the camera work doesn't amp things up.
Yeah.
Right?
It's because when you spend a lot of money on CG, they feel like they need to put it in every frame. They need to be more like Denis Villeneuve in Dune and stop going, I need to have this person's face in the shot. I need to have that thingamajiggy that the art department made back there showing more clearly. No, The camera is supposed to direct the emotion of what you want the audience to feel, and it doesn't matter if you got that special phaser in the back or that flex capacitor in the back. Who cares about that? Put the camera where you need it to be to get the audience to feel what you need it to feel at the time. If that means that everyone in the back is lit in shadows, then they're lit in shadows. We don't need to see their face. We don't need their coverage. Who cares about them?
Is it relevant to the emotions that are happening on the screen? Is it relevant to the information the audience needs to know? Nope. Okay, don't care.
Get it out.
Right?
Yeah.
It shouldn't be bad. It shouldn't be distracting, right? It should look nice, but like if we don't need to focus on it, then don't spend the time getting us to focus on it.
Like I said, my main issue is just the pacing and what's being done with the time. But like I said, it's still early-ish on, but it's amazing how far along. I'm saying only 3 episodes, but it's going to be 8 before we know it. And I'm just curious on how, because like I said,
and yet we're all still enjoying it.
yeah. We've seen how, okay, we run out of time and gets this little gnarly 2-ending situation
if it
resolved.
drags in the middle,
then we'll know by then. But like I said, it's not like I watch it and hate watching it or anything like that. I actually enjoy it, but it is interesting to, probably because we already know what we're dealing with, and so you just kind of lean in and just watch it. But you know, if I didn't like this kind of thing, then I could see why people probably would have an issue with it and wouldn't wait around. But it's in there, it's just diluted with time and space. And it's interesting that they decided to go this, and it could be a whole bunch of things. It could be the directors, could be the writing, like you said, the editing, which is a good point, real good point. Like you said, with the whole thing of used to doing animation, and it could be paced differently, and certain things you don't need to be told or shown a certain kind of way. But if it's live action, you definitely got some stuff you have to stick with that makes it. And that's why sometimes directors that do animation can't just move over to live action, because if it was that easy, everybody'd be doing it. Even somebody as good as Brad Bird had a hard time with that, even though he did a great job and good job with the Mission Impossible movie. It still had its things that a normal director probably wouldn't have done. And so it shows. Just like when you have certain writers that might move into, they might do novels and stuff, and all of a sudden they want to do a comic book. It doesn't read the same because it's different. It's different. So
different mediums play differently,
and those nuances you don't really notice or respect until it bumps up against something that's not normally doing it. And then you find out real quick that a pastry chef is not necessarily do good at grilling. Each thing has this art to it, right? It has this process to it, and it's not all the same. And so I think this is one of those kind of situations. But do we know that, you know, Dave Filoni and his team love this stuff? Yes. Did they put the heart in it? Yes. He created a lot of these characters. So you know he ain't going there to destroy nothing. You know he's not going there to make it look bad. He wants to give it everything he has to give, right? And so we know the intention isn't bad. And so I guess we have to forgive the delivery in a way. But like I said, it's not to say that the show is bad, but to ignore what we're dealing with, that's not fair either. And so it's...
Well, and the other thing too is like, he might be delivering it exactly as he wants it.
True.
Right? And it might be hitting the tone that he wants, right? And everything else. And it just may not be exactly the palette he wants.
You know, it's weird and really a problem with this too. I'll say this, and it's kind of like, it's worked to our advantage and also our disadvantage. The disadvantage is we get shows that are just like, this is not cool, this is not right, this is off, right? And then we get these really great ones. So that's the freedom and tone and stuff like that is the ebb and flow. So you just don't know what you're gonna get. So there's gonna be some highs, there's gonna be some lows, there's gonna be some meh, right? Versus like Marvel, for a long time, they had the same standard, and it wasn't too loud, it wasn't too low, but it was consistent. And that consistency lent to each movie that came after. You never questioned if something was reality or not. You never questioned the mode or intent of something, because you had the other ones to lean on. You knew what road you were on. With this series of shows that are connected but kind of not connected but connected, one day you're on off-road, one day you're on a street, one day you're on gravel, one day you're in the ocean. And so you don't know how to prepare. And so you're constantly trying to go on your journey and hoping that what you put on and wore the last trip was going to help you survive this one. And so it's too much trying to get acclimated when all you should be doing is going for the ride. and it won't let
Yeah.
you acclimate because the terrain is constantly changing, even though you're on the same trip. And it's a lot. It's a lot. So some of the stuff might be better for us to see again once it's all over and we understand. Okay, we're off-roading. Okay, put on those, those thick tires. It's gonna be a ride. Put your seatbelt on. And this one's gonna be on the water. Okay, dress cool, waterproof, blah blah blah. And that way, when we watch it or deal with it, we know what we're dealing with versus trying to figure out what we need to be wearing on the road. Because that's my thing. It's like a lot of our conversation was like how to take what was going on. Why is 3 guys that love this stuff and watch all the stuff is trying to figure out why somebody's acting the way they're acting, or what it meant this time, or this would have meant that in this show, and that would have meant that in that show, and this means this in this show, when they're all connected.
Yeah.
I'm not understanding the intent of people that I know. I'm not understanding the intent of lore that I know, or a show that was even connected to it. That stare in Andor meant this. That same stare in this means that. That same stare in the Book of Boba Fett means that. So, huh?
Yeah.
The headache of comic book readers and comic book editors.
But my recommendation is to watch the next episodes and imagine that you're watching it. I get the feeling that if we had watched this show in the same style of animation that Clone Wars was in, we would have no complaints.
Yeah.
All right. And so the final scene is Balin giving the orders to the folks to go after them and find them in the Red Forest from into the darkness. Star Trek. And so that's how we end. Very interesting episode. A good discussion with Ryan and special guest E Prime. Yeah, fellas, this was an interesting one. definitely kind of different than how we normally roll, but good in his own way for sure. It was good to have you aboard. I hope we didn't run you off, and I hope you enjoyed your time hanging with us tonight.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Well, right on. All right, so that was Jay, Ryan, and Eric. Until next time, peace.
Peace.
War, just to be contradictory, war.
That's what you do, Ryan. That's what you do.
I'm Switzerland.
Yeah.
Oh my God.